sideline reporter, analyst for Iowa State football. The Cyclones in Arizona State coming up this weekend at Arlington for the Big 12 championship. And Ryan Harklau Ryan Harklau joins us on 365 Sports. Well, that's a good-looking office you got behind you, by the way. What's the view there? Yeah,
it doesn't get. It's nice to be in here, but I'd rather be on a football field right now. But this is the daytime job before it allows me to do the football job. So I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Well, I bet you are. What does it mean to get to 10 wins? First time, I think, ever. Bowl game that they would like. It is a bowl game for the first time. A championship if they win since 1912. What does that mean to former players like you and also just people in Ames, Iowa?
Well, it's unbelievable. And for myself, when I came into the program, I started in 1996 as a player, and that program was a mess. And Dan McCarney really is the one that started this turnaround back then, had a vision for the program. You know, we had facilities. We were practicing on an old Armory cement floor. It was our weight room when I first got to Iowa State. And Dan McCarney had this vision of what it should look like. And when you looked at the stadium, when I first got to Iowa State in 96, it was a wind tunnel. There was no end zones seating. It was old school football, stadium. And it wasn't built for what it is today. And he had a vision that he felt you could win at Iowa State eventually. And he's the one that kind of started the turnaround. And then Coach Matt Campbell's the one that has taken that platform where Coach McCarney got it to, with some facilities in the start of like a fan base that believes, and now he's got the program and culture going in the right direction. And, you know, it wasn't that long ago. I know it was a COVID year and people have talked about it, but he was in Dallas a couple of years ago and got the team there, wants to go back there, had the experience, and I think is really looking forward to Saturday and playing this game again after you've had that experience once before. But I can't tell you how far this program has come, from my experience back in 96 to where it's at today. It's unbelievable.
I'm a huge fan, Ryan, of Rocco Becht. He is, and you watch him, and at times you're like, okay, there's, it's not like watching Shadur Sanders or someone like that who's like this next level athlete, but he does have a little bit of Drew Brees in him to me. A little bit, a lot like Brock Purdy, I guess, just maybe because of the uniform and the size and all that. But he is a gamer in a way that most people aren't, in that his mistakes don't stick with him. What have you noticed about him now, year two, especially in that in these big-time moments, he seems to be at the absolute best of any of the other guys on the roster?
That's a great question. This all started back we went to Athens, Ohio last year during the season. If you remember, there was some turmoil on the team with the gambling allegations and lawsuits out there. We lost our starting quarterback. We lost our starting running back. We lost a starting defensive lineman. We lost 5 starters in that when all that happened last year. And I'm going back to where this all came to. We fly into Athens. One of the players, the flu is going on. One of the players throws up on the airplane. We're getting off the airplane, stepping over vomit, like the team is throwing up. Rocco Becht gets the flu. He plays through the football game. At halftime at Ohio, he's hanging on to the atrium wall out by the concession area, throwing up, because that's just what it's like in Athens. The locker room is connected to where all the concession stands are. Goes back on the field and plays. We lose the game. We go home on that airplane, and I'll tell you, it changed him. It changed the team. We found your leader. You found your guy that would fight through things. There's been 21 regular season games since that point. They've lost 5 of them. We lost to Texas, Oklahoma. We lost to Kansas this year. Texas Tech, and I'm missing one more loss that we had in there. But anyway, you win 16 out of your next 21 regular season games coming out of that game. What I'm getting at, that guy, he will play. He's a warrior. And I will tell you, I'm not sure there's a quarterback in the nation that you want the ball in his hands more than Rocco Becht with 3 minutes to go in a football game with the ball. He's proven it throughout the season. He's put you in spots to win the game. We lost Texas Tech, but he put us on a drive that scored points. The defense just couldn't hold at the end of the game. They're on a last-minute drive. But Rocco Becht is a warrior. He has a lot of that Brock Purdy in him, like you talked about. When he's really accurate, he is really accurate. And, he's just an unbelievable leader. And I agree with you. I think Saturday there's 2 unbelievable quarterbacks playing. I think that's probably the unspoken matchup on Saturday. We have 2 great quarterbacks playing in this football game. It's going to be fun to watch.
Ryan, what was that atmosphere like in Ames on Saturday night? Knowing, rolling in, what was at stake, being at home, and just having all of this on the line and all of this history that was there for the taking, and then a very close game that I'm sure had some anxiety involved at times as well. From your standpoint, what was the emotional roller coaster like on Saturday?
One of the things is that people maybe underestimate too, that Kansas State-Iowa State rivalry, the fans call it Farmageddon, but that rivalry is bigger than people think. It's a chippy rivalry. They're very two land-grant schools, very similar schools. You recruit the same kids. We're recruiting out of Kansas. Jalen Knoll, one of our best 1,000-yard receiver this year, comes out of the state of Kansas. Brees Hall comes out of the state of Kansas. We have multiple players that we take out of the state of Kansas, or try to take, and they're doing the same thing. They had a great tight end out of Cedar Falls, Iowa, that's in the NFL now, that was there last year for them. And so it's a chippy game. And then going into that game, you know it's going to be a hard-fought game. They want to ruin it for us. We kind of last year was Snowmageddon, where it snowed the game. I think a lot of people saw that on TV, and we took it from them. We had the ball on their side of the 50 twice and scored like 9 touchdowns. I don't remember the exact stat. I mean, we had massive runs by Obusama. But coming into this game, knowing you can go in for 10 wins for the first time in school history, knowing that you're going to try to chance to play for a conference championship. And I think the best part of that was the kids stood up and played maybe one of their best games of the season. When you look at what was on the line for them, that's the best sign of this football team, is they stood up to the plate when the lights turned on. I think that's what made me the happiest coming out of Saturday. They showed up when they needed to show up.
No, they did. They really did. Now, these two teams are both ranked in the top 20 when it comes to turnover margin. Or Arizona State 11th, Iowa State, the Cyclones, are 17th. So they rely on that. In the Big 12, you have to win close games, and that also helps you do that. How critical has that been for Iowa State in their wins and losses this year?
That has been the big part. And the games that we struggled, and where the games have been tight. You even look at Utah, we threw a pick 6. We had a punt block for a touchdown, and we fumbled and muffed a punt that turned into 3 points, and we were barely able to survive those things. And when we've been tight into games, or we've struggled to win games, it's when we turn the ball over. Texas Tech, very similar story. Kansas, very similar story. And, where it didn't, I will tell you, is one of the games that it didn't go that way, went well for us, was Baylor. I mean, you look at what Baylor did after they played us. They knock off 6 in a row. And I left that game. I think that's one of our better games of the year. You could tell where Baylor was going at that time. We played a complete game. We blocked a punt for a touchdown. We turned you guys over. And that really led to the success of that game. When we're at our best, we're a very complimentary football team, where we don't give you a short field, on offense. Our special teams make plays, like a blocked field goal that happened on Saturday against Kansas State. And then offensively, we keep you on your heels. We're a balanced football team. That's when we're at our best. And when we're there, I think it is a dangerous football team, where they can line up with a lot of football teams in America and play with them.
Ryan Harklau with us on 365 Sports. He's with Iowa State Radio, and he does their sideline analyst work and played for the Cyclones as well.
This, not to take, put it all on Rocco Becht, but his wide receivers is this collectively the best group of wide receivers that Iowa State maybe has had all together? I mean, they've always had, a guy like Lazard or someone like there who's maybe an alpha, but there wasn't a Robin to that Batman a lot of time. And it seems like Noel, Higgins, like the whole group seems to fit really well together.
They really do. And it is by far, I think it is our best wide receiving duo. I think they're the best wide receiving duo in America. I don't think there is. I'm not saying by themselves they're not the best, but together, I don't know if there's 2 wide receivers on one football team that are as talented as these 2 individuals. I think they'll make their impact in the NFL. You're right. Lazard had Hakeem Butler, who also went on to the NFL a little bit and has messed around. Those 2 together were dynamic because they were so big, massive wide receivers on the outside. This is different because Jalen Knoll plays that slot. You got to cover him up. He's so dynamic on what he can do, like a Deebo Samuel type of player. And Jaden Higgins one-on-one is deadly. His catch radius is so good. And what makes them dangerous is we're not throwing on a 4 or 5 wide team throwing for 1,000-yard rushing. We're doing it with 2, sometimes 3 tight ends on the field, or a lot of times it's 2 tight end sets. And what happens is, if they're going to stack up the box. It gives one-on-one coverage for these guys, and that's where we have success. And so these receivers have to win their battles on the outside, because it's not being set up really schematically with 4 wide where you're getting a guy free and letting them run free. They have to beat somebody one-on-one to make sure that they're open to make that happen. And you got a great quarterback that'll get them the ball. But it's just a really interesting offense. If it really – they want to run the ball, they want to load up. If a team doesn't load the box, they're going to send it. They're going to send you a fullback and a tight end. And if you do load the box up, they're going to go one-on-one to the outside. And I think that's the great thing about these receivers. They give you a chance on the outside without having to put 4 wides on to throw the football.
Ryan, about a month ago, Iowa State, in having this conversation, was dead in the water as far as thinking about the Big 12 championship game. They were just trying to hold the team together because of so many injuries. And I don't think if people didn't follow closely, they really understood the depth of the injuries that they were facing. What's the health status going into this week? I guess is kind of the second part of the question. The first part is how have they managed to overcome all of these injuries? What has stood out to you most about them being able to navigate their way through having so many guys banged up at different times?
So, guys, 93 guys have played this year. A good example, linebacker Rylan Barnes played in the Baylor game, actually. In that Wednesday of the Baylor game, he was on the scout team scrimmage on Wednesday. They had no plans to play him in the game. We ran through so many linebackers and injuries. He ends up playing in the football game. The year earlier, he's in high school playing 8-man football in Iowa. He hadn't played 11-man football. He's learning the game still. And that's where the season has gone is, we lost. Right now we have 1 linebacker that's left and that was going to start the season. We're operating in roughly 2, and we do have 1 back now. Will McLaughlin is back. Malik Bervadan has been out a lot of the game. One of our great safeties going to play in the NFL. Jalen Travis, who's now playing, has been out at left tackle, and he's going to be an NFL guy, but he's missed a lot of the season. But we're actually getting healthy finally. The team is not as beat up now as they were, for example, when we played Baylor, even earlier at the Iowa game, which is kind of crazy. One of the best bye weeks we had all year was week 2. After week 2, we had a bye week, and it needed to happen because they're so banged up. And so I think the best way to explain this season is 93 guys have played. Coach Campbell will coach everybody. If you watch how Iowa State plays defense, they're on a normal Saturday, even if everyone's healthy, they're going to probably play 45 to 50 guys anyway. And he puts them in key spots in the game because he wants to see how they perform when the lights are on. He doesn't want an injury to dictate how his team can play or move on in the season. I think he prepared this football team to be where they're at today with all these injuries by how he practices them and puts them in moments to have success.
Next year, the Kansas State-Iowa State game in Dublin to open up it opens up the year. But then there's the possibility that it may not be a part of the rotation, which they have to continue that series. I know there's still Kansas State, whatever. Should they play a non-conference game to keep that alive, or do you feel like the Big 12 might change their mind?
Man, the Big 12 needs to change their mind. That's a rivalry you got to protect. Like I said, that is one that's gone on forever. You got 2 schools that are very similar. They like you said, you recruit the same kids. They know each other a lot of the times. It's a drive for our fan base both directions. It's one that you see Kansas State fans in Iowa, and you see Iowa State fans in Kansas. And I would love to see them keep that alive. And it's interesting. Our last Big 12 game of this year is against Kansas State, and our first game of the year next year is against Kansas State at Ireland. And I think that is going to be a great way to kick it off. But guys, I hate to see that rivalry go away. And darn it, we're finally on the right side of it. I think we won 7 of the last 9 games, where previously they won the previous 10 in a row. And we finally got to the right side of it. Now they're going to get us away from the game. But it's a great rivalry, and Coach Kleiman does a heck of a job down there in Manhattan. It
would be 110 after next year. 110 meetings between the two that might not go on if the schedule right now the Big 12 has released doesn't change. Anybody else with Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan, in terms of Arizona State, it felt like they had a 3-headed monster. One of those heads is not going to be available to play in Jordan Tyson. That's obviously a huge loss for them. I mean, there's no denying that. But Cam Scattaboo, Sam Levitt, the rest of the casting crew, what pops out to you in terms of the Sun Devils, and what stands out in terms of how Iowa State matches up and deals with them on Saturday?
Sam Levitt's one of the best quarterbacks in America right now. He's 19 years old. Okay, he's 19 years old. The past 5 games, he's got 13 touchdowns and 1 interception. At 19 years old, playing at a high level. This kid's playing at Ole Miss. They're talking about him on stages everywhere, and has that media bias, if you will. that kid is elite. Man, you watch him, and he's really the thing that opens up the run game for Cam Scadaboo. And Cam gets a lot of the, and he gets a lot of the praise because he's such a tough runner. He's fun to watch, and boy, he is good. The past 5 games, he got 9 TDs. But boy, I think Sam Levitt's the guy that really opens up that offense, because if you want to load, similar story to us, you want to load the box up to stop Cam, Sam's smiling. The kid's 19 years old and playing at that level. He's the scariest thing. I know there's, like you said, 3-headed monster. He's the head of it. And man, that kid is really good football player. And if he's anywhere else, he's national media. If he's anywhere else right now, he's just a big time player.
When he came to Arizona State, I think it was Dillingham that shared this story, that he told Dillingham, I will make Jaden Rashada realize he made the right decision to transfer. And look what he's done for Arizona State. Hey, man, great to have you again, Ryan. Always love having you on. Appreciate your time, and good luck. Have fun this weekend.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, and go Cyclones. Keep spreading the word for the Big 12, though. It's a great conference.
We are. Ryan Harklau, former Iowa State Cyclone, now does their sideline work for Iowa State.